Ahoy there, mateys! earthmanbrick here. Today we'll be scratch building a unique creature from DM Scotty's RPG, EZD6. Here is Meredith from Scatter Terrain to tell us more about this beast.
The Knoblogg appears to be a large boulder. Then it moves. When it senses food within near range, the shell lifts up and 6 tentacles lash around, seeking prey. Once a victim is grabbed, the creature begins to smash it against its tough, knobby shell. Hose-like mouths protrude from under the shell and begin lapping up the blood and gore from pulverized victims. The Knoblogg is an ambush predator and easy to run away from, as long as you're not grappled.
Hello there, it is I, earthmanbrick, and today we're going to be looking to make ourselves a Knoblogg. So the first thing we're going to need is a base. Now this base is made from MDF sprue. You can, a whole bit of MDF sprue frame. Oh dear, all the bits are flaking off. Just swipe that to one side. And yes, this was actually a big part of another sprue frame that I had, so I thought I'd recycle it. Much like this kind of sprue frame here, where you get all these extra bits and spaces, and the trick is just to find a good part. This part's good. It's relatively square in shape, and then what you would do is you just take your sprue cutters and you just cut through that quite heavily, cut through these bits, that bit there, so you're left with the general shape and a lot of overhang there, and then you'd start steadily trimming that down, and then you'd sand down the edges slightly. And boom, you've got a healthy sized base there. And then you would just decorate it with flocks. I've used flocks. What else? That's a birch seed there as well. And a few little tufts. Oh, and I used textured paint as well, just to give it a slightly raised surface. And that kind of works, gives you the general idea. Next part, tinfoil. This is what we're going to use to bulk out our creature, and we'll also use some old wire as well, just to drill and pin it in to keep it in. We'll be using pistachio shells. Again, another free byproduct, much like the tinfoil. Once you're done using it for your oven and whatnot, you can recycle it. Keeps your build relatively light. Now, because the Knoblogg that we're building is mostly looks like a boulder, we'll be using these for the top of it and these bits for the bottom half. So that'll form the body, and then the rest will just be wires, and then we'll tart it up with some milliput putty, and that should be it. And once we've got the putty, we'll be using lots of sculpting tools. So we'll be using these silicone shapers. These are nice little silicone tipped nubs that are great for molding your shapes. Although with these smaller ones they're quite good, but these larger ones are so much better because they're stronger and maintain the shape so much easier. So you get more control. It's the same with larger brushes, you get a lot more control. So look at that. Can really get some wavy shapes and whatnot with that tip. This tip, not the same. But you learn to sort of get to grips with your tools. And we'll be using a lot of these bits as well, which is the ball-shaped, ball-tipped ones. Because we'll be making little concave parts. And we do that by pushing it in and leaving a nice little recess. And once we've got that recess, we'll then work into it with the smaller ones and start jabbing in. But you'll see all that process in the video, because what I'll do is what I'll be doing is I'll do a time-lapse video of the actual sculpt, and I'll talk through a few bits of it there, but I figured this is the best way to show you the general planning approach, and then onto the actual build. So See you soon.
Hello there! So here's a time lapse. We start off with our ring binder wire that's stretched out to make the legs by drilling and pinning them into the base. Skewering them through our tinfoil ball first. It's a technique that most professional sculptors and special effects artists use to cut costs, as it's both cheap and malleable as a material. Once secured to the base, we use hot glue to bulk out the legs and tentacles, also using the hot glue to adhere the pistachio shells and slate chuckies onto both the top and bottom of the Knoblogg's body. Next step is to mix up some Milliput, which is a two-part epoxy putty that we'll be using to add texture whilst also creating a surface that will take the paint, especially since certain materials we've been using like the wire, hot glue and tinfoil will tend to repel the paint. After using our rounded sculpting tools to texture the surface, a single rhinestone was added to make up an eye for our would-be monster. Final step was to paint the miniature using a few cheap paints and dry brushing the slate to make it look more like aged stone, accentuating the natural contours and patterns. And that's about it. Pretty simple build overall. Please check out the links below to DM Scotty's and Meredith's channels. If you're interested in playing some EZD6, then I highly recommend it. It's a brilliant RPG that throws out all the boring stat tables, annoying needless grapple rules, and all the other baggage that takes you out of the enjoyment of the role-playing experience. It's streamlined for fun and is a great gateway for both newcomers and experienced gamers alike. But that's all I've got for you folks today, so it's time for me to bid you good riddance. Bugger off until next time. Bye.